It's so trash that no one can remember its name or what it or care what it does. Hey everyone, a quick note before we get stuck into this video. This was trimmed down from a 3-hour Twitch stream. We went into quite a lot of detail on stream, it turned out. I've managed to trim this down to the best bits, so hopefully you find this enjoyable, but we did elaborate on a lot of the different decisions as to why things went in certain places. So if you'd like to know more information about that, I have got a copy of the full stream. Maybe I might put it up someday, but I did try and edit this down to be a bit more bite-sized for you guys on YouTube. This was also just meant really as a bit of fun, so not to be taken too seriously. And we did try and take all of the items sort of in a bubble, like what the item actually does. Is that a useful effect? What kind of characters might be able to use it in order to try and rank these? So we haven't taken into account too much the way that you maybe acquire some of these items in the game. If you would like to get in on the discussion live, you can always catch me at twitch.tv/ManageRequest, where I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday. And if you're watching it on the day that this comes out, I will be doing a special Friday stream with the new Gloomhaven patch for my birthday too. And as always, guys, if you do enjoy the video, toss it a like and consider subscribing. Got lots of Gloomhaven content and guides already on the channel down below. But apart from that, let's get into the tier list. We're going to start off with Boots. So Boots of Striding, which is your +2 move. I strongly think that this is a very, very good effect. Plus movement is incredibly good. This is definitely an A tier item, +2 move. I think these are substantially weaker than these because you can get +2 for 20 gold. This is not a great upgrade. If you already own this, I don't think there's any reason as to why you would really want to upgrade this. They aren't as good, but they're probably still worth the price. Just Boots of Striding are seriously undervalued. Yeah, I'm leaning towards B, maybe A. If I'm doing them at a cost, then B. Yeah, I suppose if my logic is that these are ones are like that, I think, yeah, B. So initiative boots, the beginning of the round, we can either increase or decrease our initiative by 10. These are pretty solidly in the D tier, in my opinion. These are pretty bad. That this effect in general is just D. And also I think like we can say the same for these as well. It's crazy overvaluing. You could argue that maybe these sneak up into C tier because they're actually useful for some characters. I think that this is downright unuseful. So if we're saying that C is somewhat useful, D is never useful, I think that, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll switch those two then. Jump is one of those kinds of abilities that I think this is probably pretty fair. 20 gold, certain characters like the Scoundrel, for example, at level 1, loves these boots, really useful for her. And there are other characters that would also find good use out of these, somewhere between B and C. Yeah, that's kind of like where I'm at too with it, guys. I think it's somewhere between B and C, right? It's maybe not quite, I think it's a bit better than these two. So I think we've got to rank it as B. But it's certainly not up there with like the A tier stuff. So rocket boots. Okay, so this is kind of like I guess the natural progression of this effect. Rocket boots, in my opinion, are S tier. Being able to get +3 move and jump. It basically just combines, you know, this and this together. They're very expensive, yes, but I tell you what, they are worth it, in my opinion. It's like final gear as well, right? In an ideal situation, if you're like level 9, this is the kind of item that you'd have. So comfortable shoes. Comfortable shoes is an interesting one to look at. This item to me is a little bit, because I would really just want a pair of these, right? This is definitely worse than this by a long shot. It's probably, but it's definitely worse than this and this. Would you rather have jump? Maybe. Also, this is very specific for certain characters who can make better use out of it. I'm leaning towards D because I mean, D is an item that you would never buy, and I honestly don't think I would ever buy comfortable shoes. It's definitely somewhere in between these two, right? Maybe I should have added another tier. We're adding a new tier, chat. F. All right. D. I feel like because it's not as good as these. It's not as good as these. No way. But it's not as bad as this. D is basically like, I would probably never buy them, but I could maybe see a character taking them in a certain situation. F is never buy them, ever. C being, yes, you would buy them. Serene Sandals, right? Definitely better than this. And I think that this actually might be almost the cutoff for this effect. I feel like being able to get a move 4 instead of a move 2 kind of then does incentivize you more to use the default move actions. I know it costs a lot more, but I just feel like this is like the cutoff where this becomes actually good. if you could move 4 every single turn, that's good, right? Flying boots. So I think flying boots are pretty strong. I think they're probably verging on A tier. And not only is it just an upgrade, this is a huge upgrade to this effect, right? S tier should be reserved for maybe like the best of the best of the best. This is very, very good. So A tier, pretty happy with that. The dragon scale boots. So dragon scale boots, you are unaffected by difficult and hazardous terrain. F. This is awful. This is terrible. I mean, if you think that you can get a pair of boots to do flying, it is really bad. Worse than this item, I would say. This is more F than this, but we're not going to create another tier. Right, magma waders. Ignore the damaging effects of hazardous terrain and perform a heal 2 self-action on any turn in which you have entered a hazardous terrain hex. These are probably D tier, right? In certain scenarios, these can be pretty good. In other scenarios, they can do absolutely nothing. Yeah, they're definitely not good, but they're definitely not trash. Yeah, good way of putting it. You're immune to all forced movement caused by either enemies or scenario mechanics. Trash. I would not waste 20 gold on this at all. Endurance foot wraps. If you move 4 or more hexes on your turn, perform a heal 1 sub. I actually quite like this item. I think on certain characters that have high movement, I don't mind this item because it kind of clears poison, it clears wound. There are certain characters that do move more than 4 very, very regularly. I'm ridging towards C tier for this. High D or low C. Yeah, I think that's a good spot for it. Steel Sabatons, which is if you move 1 or fewer hexes on your turn, gain shield for round. This is pretty similar, I think, to this item. However, I just get a feeling that this is really close between C and D. Yeah, like for Sun, this is probably up there at like probably between C and B tier for Sun. But for everybody else, it's really not very good. For 60 gold, got to be D tier. Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Now we're on to probably the worst pair of boots you could probably ever buy. Expensive shoes. This is by far the worst item so far, I think. This is at least situationally going to maybe be useful. This is like, who's ever doing this? Ever. All right, moving on. So let's go on to chest slot items. So hide armor for 10 gold, I think is pretty decent. Possibly up in A tier. It does have the minuses though, so you do have to get the perk. You do have to get the perk. So it's probably actually down in like B tier because of the perk. If you didn't have to have if it didn't give you negatives, so that you kind of have to have already leveled a little bit, really, I think, yeah, it would probably be A. These are all going to rank pretty similarly, to be honest, for like the amount of gold and stuff that they cost. We're bearing in mind here that this is an item that not every character can wear or wants to wear, but for the characters that do, they are good. I think we can probably pretty safely put most of the armors in B tier. In certain situations, like this is very good because you're probably going to get both charges and long rest and get it back. Whereas this, you might actually get to the end of a cycle and not have used all of the shield. Therefore, when you long rest, you don't get to refresh it. Steam armor, I think Steam armor is, it's an item that you get for free in the board game. The big problem that this item has is that it has no drawback, which then means, okay, maybe I want to put it on some other characters. But there are so many better chest slot items for like spellcasters, any other kind of like, assassin style characters. There's so many better ones. Sword edge armor. So this is pretty similar, except it's basically we get shield and retaliate for 3. I think I quite like this. I think this is pretty similar. I'm pretty happy with any of these. Cloak of invisibility, chat. Is it S tier? I mean, it's pretty much there, right? S. Yep. I think we're all S tier. You can do so much with it. It's 20 gold. You can buy it straight out of the gate for the game. It's so good. Block doors, block pathways. It allows you to play more aggressive as well, which is always good. Yeah, I think S tier. Invisibility, it's so undercosted. To be honest, this could probably be double the price, and it might drop it to A tier, but it's still going to be up there. So Blinking Cape is during your turn, perform a move 4, jump 4 action. This, in my opinion, is potentially an S tier, but it's probably going to end up in A tier. It gives you a a movement effect without you having to play a movement card. So it's almost like you're getting a free action. I absolutely love it with the crag cart. It's one of my favorite items with the crag cart. because it allows you to do your unstable upheaval forceful storm combo without having to make sure you're in the right position the previous turn. Yeah, it's definitely can make for flashy plays. Cloak of phasing. Right. This is an awkward one, right? Because the not being able to attack is a big downside for a lot of characters, but certain characters, boy, do they love this item. I think this is probably B tier. You think A? I think it's somewhere between these two. The thing is that I don't see me ever rushing out to get this. I'm not particularly excited to get it. A, because it allows you to have boots with it. But then you're going to need obstacles, right? You're not always going to have obstacles. I suppose then you just get flying, right? Which is pretty good still. All right, you've convinced me. It's going into A, but I mean, that's very much from what you guys are saying, not from me. I think I would probably have it in B. Flea Bitten Shawl. I actually think this item is okay. And for 10 gold, you're not really losing anything for it. I think this is like a solid C. It's not going to do anything special, but there's going to be certain situations where this is really going to help you out. And it means that you can move a bit more aggressively as a support character as well. Dragon Scale Armor. The slot that this takes up, you're passing up having shields for this. This is pretty easily an F. It's very situational. I think this is going to be a running theme with the Dragon Scale set, unfortunately. Most of these things can be mitigated with just very small heal actions, which you're going to potentially have health potions yourself. Cloak of Pockets. Cloak of Pockets, I think, is actually pretty okay. I think this, again, sits up in this kind of area of C tier. You can definitely have some very fun builds using this. And small items can be very, very powerful. And small items are actually one of the most competitive sort of slots. In fact, it is the most competitive slot. So being able to just get an additional 2 is quite nice. And again, the certain type of character who wants this is going to be some kind of like, you know, ranged support or potentially a spellcaster who is going to want to like have power potions, stamina potions, mana potions, things that really take up a lot of space, and this is actually pretty useful. I mean, if you've got lots of small items available to you, then this could be super, super broken. Really, really broken, right? It's probably ultimately around C tier, because if I had 20 gold and I could choose between Cloak of Pockets, I mean, I would take Cloak of Invisibility, right? Because also you have to have the extra gold to buy this. So although this is 20 gold, also bear in mind that it's not just 20 gold, because you also then have to have the money to spend on the 2 additional items. Leather armor and studded leather armor, right? This is like fine. I don't love it. I'm kind of on C tier for it. I think if I'm playing someone, the type of character that wants this is like a scoundrel, right? The scoundrel, I think, could also just make really good use of an invisibility cape instead. It's not the worst 20 gold you can spend in the game, but it's certainly not the best. Okay, well, if we rank this one D tier, let's do studded leather, which is essentially exactly the same, except you get a shield 1, and that could maybe go into C. I think the additional shield 1 is probably worth the 10. Yeah. I think it's 2 charges. So the digital version is better, for sure. Okay, so Robes of Evocation. This can be very good. Very, very good, and can be broken by a lot of characters. So I think this is I mean, it's not quite S tier because it is more based around certain characters, but I think it's an easy A tier and spent, not consumed. Yes, exactly, as well. Not a burn effect. Robes of Summoning. This is probably a D. A bit situational. Only a couple of characters want it, and it's a lot of gold to sink into it. You really have to go all in on that summoner build, right? And even then, heal 2 is not a huge amount, considering that a lot of summons die in 1 or 2 hits anyway. The Sacrificial Robes, which is pretty similar to this effect, except we have to take 3 damage to do 1 attack, but we don't need to consume an element. I think this is kind of verging on this or this. It's a pretty significant drawback. 3 damage is not a small amount, especially if you're playing like a spellcaster who probably has a pretty low health pool to begin with. It's very close to being A, but I think we'll probably put it in B. Shadow Armor. So when you are damaged by an attack targeting you, suffer no damage instead. This is a situational item, I think. This is probably like in D, but you can certainly just use this like a pseudo Iron Helm. You're never running out to buy it, but if you get it, you're going to slap it on and use it, right? Second Skin. So Second Skin is another item that I think Second Skin's like probably like C. For certain characters, it's actually really good. It can really smooth out your draws and increase your damage curve. On to head slot items. Yes, here we go. Goggles. S tier. One of the best items in the game. You never change this item out once you buy it. Ever. I don't think anyone ever, unless you get the strength and enhancements, and then you can like, okay, we can drop it for something else maybe. But even then, that's a lot of gold that you have to sink into enhancements. You can get it immediately with the starting gold that you get when you start the game. So yeah, S tier. Right, good. Glad we're all agreed on that one. Dragon Scale Helm. I'm going to see a bit of a theme here. We're not going to go too much into this, but again, for the same reasons, it's very, very situational. 50 gold. No way. No chance. Mask of Terror. Now, Mask of Terror is an item that I've actually really grown to like in digital, because we don't have that many choices in digital for head slot items. So, well, we didn't. We've now got more. But this was my go-to for a long time with certain characters, and I actually really liked it. Probably up there somewhere in the B or A tier. The thing is that Iron Helm is very good. An Iron Helm is often the item that just tanks get, and then they just never ever get another head slot item, right? It's very, very useful, and I guess in digital we probably have a bit of a lean. In digital we probably have a bit of a bias, right, towards the fact that we use this item a lot because we get it early. We didn't get Iron Helm. And we play against a lot of retaliate enemies. I think it's better than some of these. I'm going to put it in B. When you are adjacent to 3 or more monsters, gain shield 1. Bin it. Having to be adjacent to 3 or more enemies, it's quite situational. You have to put minus things in if you weren't playing a tank, so it's unusable by anyone other than a tank. Heavy Bassinet. Another F tier, I think. Anything that gives you immunity, I think in general, is pretty bad. Being immune to stun is basically irrelevant because there's only a few enemies that even stun you in the game. Some of them go on very late initiative, and you should be trying to play around that. It's basically you're immune to muddle, which strengthen exists, advantage exists, so there are other ways around it. Hawk Helm, I think, is a very solid item at the beginning of the game. It's not something that you're like super excited about, but it does certainly help some of the characters who don't get goggles. There's also some combo potential with this and Lens, and I think Lens probably sneaks into A tier. So I think Hawk Helm's probably B with the plus 1 range, but I think Telescopic Lens actually probably sneaks into A because the difference that you can do with this is pretty crazy. But I think Hawk Helm is an item that you're never sad to buy, and Telescopic Lens is a combo piece that is very, very good. Empowering Talisman. This is a hard item to rank because it's very much depends on what items you have. If, for example, you can refresh any of the necklaces, earrings, this is insane, right? Absolutely insane. It's S tier. But being able to do that item twice, it's pretty nuts. But it is dependent on what you have, so I don't think you necessarily you see this item and you immediately buy it or you get it. I'm going to put it at A because I think that it needs another item to make it good, so therefore it doesn't make it to S tier. S tier is items that are just inherently amazing on their own, right? When attacked, if Earth is strong, immobilize the attacker. Right, F. I mean, for 50 gold, this is way too situational. Way too situational for 50 gold. Yeah, not even in waning. Trash. I agree. Horned Helm. This is super good. It's very, very on the characters that can use it. It is amazing. If you are a melee attack character who has any amount of movement, right? It's so good. It's just basically plus 1 attack every turn. S tier item. The best head slot item really for any kind of melee assassin-y type character, really. Iron Helm, here we go. So Iron Helm is that we can basically, when we're attacked, and if we get a ×2 drawn against us, we actually can it's just a 0 instead, right? You don't take the ×2, it's just a 0. I think this might be A tier because again, it's an item that I don't think it's quite S tier. It's pretty close. Hot take S tier. If you actually want to tank, this is the most essential. Yes, that is true. If you are tanking, it is a absolutely essential item. It's useful to not all. Yeah, but this is not useful to all. This is not useful to all. This is not useful to... Well, I mean, this is kind of useful to all. But what I'm saying is there are other things you want in the slots. But this is definitely S tier for any tank in the game. All right, I'm convinced. I think it's going into S tier. I mean, it is the #1 tanking helmet. Thieves Hood. During your Loot 1 ability, perform a Loot 2 ability instead. Burn, get out. During your turn, consume an element to create any element. This is kind of okay. and certain characters could probably make use of it. So for example, triangles would probably like this item, would probably use it. I don't think it's quite up in B tier. I would probably put it solidly in the C tier. Similar to like second skin, it's an item that perhaps a certain couple of characters may find useful. Protective charm I think is probably down here in the F tier. It might just elevate itself from F tier to D tier. It's an item that I've used a few times and it's been okay. Let's put it in D tier. I don't think it's quite unplayable, but 60 gold, it's pretty close. Pendant of Dark Packs, S tier. The characters that can use it, it's just insane. You can get back 2 stamina potions, get back an earring. It's so strong. It really is not a drawback for the characters that want it. Curse of Dark Packs really has to be up there. It really does, right? What's this one called? I hadn't seen this item before. I don't remember it at all. It's so trash that no one can remember its name or care what it does. Title or something. Wavecrest Talisman. Thank you so much, guys. Wavecrest Talisman. Yeah, we'll go with that. When attacked, if ice is strong, perform a push to action targeting attacker. Trash for the same reason that this is kind of trash. Far too situational. 50 gold as well. It's a neat idea. I think this is an interesting idea. Just unfortunately, just doesn't really pan out. Amulet of Life, Necklace of Life. This is kind of okay. For 20 gold, this is fine. I think this is probably B tier. I don't mind it because you can kind of heal off poison. Getting just to heal 1 every single kind of rotation is not terrible. You'd probably pick it up if you had some gold left over and some of the other items weren't available to you. Necklace of Teeth, which is after we kill an enemy, we get to perform a heal oneself. This is probably edging towards A tier. It's either B or A. It's close. It's very close. What do you guys think? It's A for some, B for others. Let's go B. I think B. Yeah, I think B is probably fair. Poison Dagger. 20 gold. I think 20 gold is not a bad price for something like this. It's very good for people who have maybe an attack bottom and an attack top, right? So Scoundrel can make good use of this early game for just 20 gold. Poison is a nice effect. Blocks heals. That also has situationally good use against other enemy types. I think that B is pretty fair. Piercing Bow. This is very, very good. Ignoring all shield on 1 attack is very strong. I think this is probably A tier. It's not S tier. It's probably pretty close to S tier, but I think it's a strong A. This is an effect that you don't get access to anywhere else, right? Unless you specifically have an attack, like your card, your actual ability card specifies something to do with shields. Against certain enemies, it just makes certain scenarios a breeze, like an absolute breeze. The Hook Chain. During a ranged attack, add pull 2 to the entire attack action. This is pretty bad. If it was one-handed, I could maybe see it being D. Situationally useful, but for 40 gold. Whoa. Yeah. Two-handed really does actually really hurt this. Let's play Black Knife. So Black Knife is during your melee attack, add Curse. Pretty similar to Poison. I think you're pretty happy to have this. Adding a 1 curse in is not as good as Poison. Actually, yeah, it's not as good as Poison. I'm going to put that as C, actually, because I think Poison is inherently better in every way. So Dagger Sword is Wound. I think I'd see this in a similar way. Wound is better than Poison in most of the time. Like, the thing is that these 2 items do something, right? I'm going to poison something. I know that I'm getting +1 damage on my attacks against that target, right? I'm wounding something. I know it's going to take 1 damage at the beginning of each of its turns. This is, I'm cursing it. Hopefully it pays off. Okay, so let's do the Elemental Blades. All of the Elemental Blades, I think, are solid D. The reason for this is, to be honest, most of the time, elements are more useful when used with abilities. Most of the time. There are a few characters that can make some good use out of them. Generally, though, the Elemental Blades are not very good, except for certain party compositions in certain situations. I think that's good. They're B tier for a few, but mostly not great. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely, I agree. Now, Javelin is two-handed, which means it's going to take out 2 slots, but Javelin is very good because it does a couple of things. One, you could potentially just attack 2 things with it straight up. But the other good thing that it can do is it can actually negate retaliate damage, right? You can target something that's a little bit further away. It can be very useful in situations with narrow corridors where it's very difficult for you to get over the heads of your allies. Long Spear. What did I say? Javelin. Oops. Long Spear. Long Spear is the name of the item. Not having this here is really throwing me. So Battle Axe, this basically turns your attack into a 2-hex attack. One of your single target ones into a 2-hex attack. It is a burn. It is a one-handed item though. So you could use this with something else. It is only 20 gold. I think this is kind of okay. Certain characters can really use this to good effect. And as a one-handed item, I think it's probably as good as this. So I'm going to say that this is probably about B tier. 20 gold. It doesn't make A tier because it's not repeatable. But for a one shot of being able to do this, this is actually really nice. It's probably verging on A tier, but because it's a loss and this isn't, I would say it's definitely worth the extra 10 gold for this. It probably just makes around B tier. Let's now look at Scythe. So Scythe is pretty similar, except it adds an extra hex and it's two-handed. Could be very, very strong with certain characters, but I actually think that it's probably less likely that you can get 3 characters with this. I think Scythe probably drops down into the C tier. It's two-handed, it's an extra 20 gold, it adds 1 extra hex. You know, this you can probably carry. It's not really taking up much space in your inventory, right? Just one hand. You can use something else like a dagger or anything else, right? It's not really like, you're not making a really big active choice. This is definitely an all-in kind of play. Like, I've got Scythe, I'm going all in. Bloody Axe. Draw melee attack, suffer 2 damage to add +1 attack to the entire attack action. Bloody Axe is one of those kind of items where the characters that will use it are not the characters that you think would use it. What do you think, chat? I think I'm somewhere between A and B with this one. This is a very important line of text. Entire attack action just basically means it just screams combo at you. So Versatile Dagger. Whenever you use the default top of an ability card, perform an attack 3 instead of an attack 2. Now, I actually think that this is probably worse than Comfortable Shoots. There's only one character that can really use this to great effect, which is the Mind Thief. Maybe the music note, but it's very, very situational. I guess this is probably D because it's not completely unusable, but it's pretty close. It's interesting to maybe do the occasional weird build with it, but it's very loose, right? So the thing is that you've also got this guy hanging out, right? Which is the better version. It costs a lot more though. I think we have to put them both in D. There's not very often that you ever use the top attack actions, but you often use the bottom move actions because the most premium spot of your card is always your top action. The bottoms are often just used for move. So that's why like Serene Sandals is a bit better because quite often you will find yourself just needing to move a little bit. Summon Warrior Spirit. Let's do this one. This is pretty trash. I don't mind it so much on a couple of characters here or there, but honestly, I feel like it's really bad. The move 1 is terrible. 4 HP means that it's probably only going to last 2 hits if you're lucky. Unfortunately, most of the summon items are going to end up in F. So during a single target melee attack, the target and all enemies adjacent to the target suffer 1 damage. Oh, it's a burn. Oh man, I really wish that wasn't a burn. It's 20 gold, which is okay for a situational item, right? I mean, it's definitely worse than poison and wound and any of those kinds of effects, right? 100%. I mean, it's similar to the elemental blades, right? Yeah, I guess if we lump it in with the elemental blades and we'll say that like occasionally you may want to use it for something. During a single target melee attack action, you can target any single enemy within 2 hex. So this is pretty similar to Long Spear. It basically just says that your melee attacks have range 2 from now on, right? It's pretty much what it kind of says. All right, let's put it in A tier because it does fundamentally kind of completely change the way that you can play. Yeah, it's always active and it has no downsides. Right, yeah, you don't have to long rest to get it back. You don't have to play around it in any way. It's just you always have it. So during your melee attack, targeting a living corpse, living spirits, or living bones, add +5 attack to a single attack, 50 gold. This is a very hard item to evaluate. Very situational. Yeah, I mean, it's part of a quest line in the game. So it's not one that you're just going to buy. So to say that it's like bad is kind of misleading because it is an item that you get through a quest line. I guess it's probably D, right? I don't think it's F. I don't really want to put it in F because I don't think it's completely useless. Ancient Drill. S. It's combos with so much stuff. The PS2 is incredible. Again, I'm kind of biased here because I love this. I mean, maybe you could move it down to A tier because it's not like an item that everybody wants. Better than bow though. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I was looking at bow, and bow is, I mean, if you're arguing for that, bow probably should be up here too. See, this is like one of those kind of items that I definitely have a personal feeling towards S, but maybe it should be dropped down into A. Bow could be better in certain situations because you might have more shield. I mean, in theory though, this could read like PS4, right? Because it's +2 attack. PS2 could also just read like PS4. So these are probably pretty comparable, right? They kind of do the same thing. I would maybe give the nod to drill because it gives you the flexibility of having an extra 2 attack, but this combos very nicely with probably more stuff. Yeah, I think probably A tier. I think that was a very good point from Gremlock, that really we should be valuing it the same as bow pretty much. Now, weighted net is, I think, is a very fair item. It's nothing that's going to be like crazy good, but you can immobilize something, which can usually be a good amount of control once every kind of go round. I think B is definitely the mark of like solid. Like if you've got the money, probably buy them. Stuff of eminence. During your ranged attack, consume an element to add +1 attack to the entire action. I like this. I think this is very good. It's pretty much the same as robes. I think this can probably go up into the A tier. It might go down into the B tier just because of how much it costs though. 60 is a lot. Plus it would compete with bow, right? Which is not great. Also means that because it's two-handed, you can't use wands. Probably either a B or an A. I'm feeling like maybe B. You certainly only want one of these items as well. Staff of Elements is we can just create any element, right? Now this, I'm not such a fan of. The reason why I'm not a fan of this is I think that you can just use 2 wands instead. Yes, you can choose which element, which obviously is very good if you're struggling, but to be honest, most of the time you can get the ones that you want. I'm sticking, every single one for me is probably going in the B tier. So 1 step below wands. So we're saying C then. So we've got Summoning Staff. During our turn, a summoned ally within range 3 performs a move through action with you controlling the action. F. I don't even think if you're playing a summoner, you really care about this. You could maybe put it in D tier because it's useful in some situations, maybe. All right, maybe put it in D tier because at least maybe one or 2 characters may use it. Oh, you know, hang on. I've got this in D tier, so I guess I have to have them both in D tier. I do feel like maybe the blades are getting a bit of a hard deal by being down here. Staff of Zorn. I quite like this, but it's a one-shot throwaway item. It's expensive, but it's not bad. It's pretty similar to like Scythe. It's a very all-in type item. It's probably between C and D. I think probably D. I mean, the problem is this bow's too good. The problem is bow is too good. I think I'm probably about D with it. Okay, wands. Right, all of the wands I think are probably B tier. Let's go B. I mean, they're just necessary things. They enable a lot of characters. Only Dark Wand B tier. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely the best of the ones. All of these are useful for certain characters. I'm not going to give... I mean, yes, wind is probably... Air is probably the weakest wand. Dark is probably the strongest wand. Just because of the characters who will use them. We missed Warhammer, chat. When did we miss that? Okay, Warhammer. Where's that going? A tier, right? Gotta be. S tier? I mean, it's very good. Same argument as Ancient Drill. Yeah, it is. We're having exactly the same argument as we are with Ancient Drill. Let's put it here then. Let's put it here. I think these 3 items are pretty similar. Right, so bombs are very good. Volatile bomb. So this is the 3 hex one. These are burns, but these are very strong because you can essentially stun 3 things. This is very similar to like Warhammer. This is basically like the ranged version of Warhammer. This can stun more things than this, but this is only 1 hand, like 1 slot. I think volatile bomb can be up here. This is unstable explosives. This is basically like the upgraded version. All allies in the area do suffer 3 damage. There's a bit of a drawback there. But to be honest, you're mainly only hitting 3 with both of these. Yeah, this is probably worse because it's an extra 15 gold. There's a drawback. And to be honest, most of the time, you're probably only going to be doing 3 anyway. But this is more versatile, right? You mean the three pattern can be a bit different. Heat shield, 20 gold for a shield one. I think this is going to be very similar to armor. To be honest, they're probably all going to end up in B tier, or some of them are going to end up in B tier. I think spiked shield might actually end up in A tier. Obviously, this is much better than that, but I think probably ultimately it falls into the same category as this. Ideally, you probably want these 2, like final kind of build would be this and this together if you're playing like full tank. But yeah, I value these are pretty much the same. It's double the money for the same effect, right? This is the worst shield, wall shield. The reason why is it's two-handed, and it's max shield 4. Sometimes shield 4 is overkill. You might only need shield 2, in which case you don't have the versatility of just burning, like just tapping your tower shield and then having shield 1 for another attack, right? It's substantially worse than the other shields. And the fact that this is only one additional shield to you rocking, you know, this and this, right? Or this and this. It's only one additional shield, but this gives you the versatility. Let's do potions. I would probably say that the heal 3 is probably like B. The heal 5 is probably also like B. And the heal 7 is maybe like A. But it's probably around. I think they should all probably be B. You're always happy to have health potions. If you've got some gold left over, certain characters will always buy them. So power potions. So +1 attack. This is probably A tier, just because it's your entire attack action. 10 gold as well. It's so easy to use. It's so simple. Combos well with all of the items that we've got in this in this tier as well, or a lot of them. So I think it's a pretty easy A tier for both of these. All right, stamina potions, the elephant in the room. They kind of have to go S tier, don't they? Really, just having the ability to get a card back from your discard is just so strong. Also good on all characters. Yet one of the big fundamental flaws is that with the game is the stamina potions are so good and every character wants them and there's not enough to go around. So somebody will eventually, unfortunately, not get one. Cog, can't remember what it is. Disarms all traps, range 2. Trash. Before an enemy would consume an element, consume the element instead with no effect. Trash. Doom powder. Doom powder is actually decent. Solid B. Yeah, the thing is with Doom powder is I haven't used it loads myself to great effect. So that's probably why I'm being a little bit harsh on it. So Doom Compass is more useful than a lot of the items down here. It's probably around D. It's very expensive. It is an item you get for free fairly early on. It's free gold. I don't like it. If I had to buy this item, it would be F. A black sensor, I think, is probably F. Again, the same situation as with this. I think that this is probably a bit better because you can actually do some damage with this. This is just delaying and it's only within range 2. It's 50 gold, takes up a whole slot. It's pretty rough. Oh, a card. During your turn, place a character token on an adjacent normal or elite enemy. You add +1 attack to all your attacks targeting this enemy. The thing is that it can be very good. For boss missions, this is amazing. Oh no, it's normal or elite though. Oh, you can't put it on bosses. Ooh. It's probably F tier then. It's 75 gold for an incredibly situational effect that is not going to do anything a lot of the time. I can't in good faith put this in D. I would never want to have this. 75 gold to poison something. That is a very good point. Spider, during your turn, perform a loot 1 action, F. I'm probably going to be putting most loot actions into F. I don't really think that they're very good. When attacked by an adjacent normal enemy, force the enemy to attack one of its allies within its range instead. For example, you're being attacked by a night demon and you have this, and then you force it to attack something else. That's pretty good value. Okay, it's not terrible. Let's put it in D. Let's put it in D. Because I don't think you're ever really, again, you're never really going out of your way to get this item. But if you ended up getting it, you might not sell it. You might keep it. Yeah, if you look at it from the perspective like it's basically like a health potion, but it also reflects damage, like it does damage, then that's pretty good. I mean, for 10 more gold, that's definitely worth it. It would save you from taking 7 damage or 5 or 6 damage, something like that. Not bad, right? Okay, so this is an item that you get through a quest line, and it can be pretty good. I've seen when my friend has used this, it's been game changing. If you can't use it, it's obviously a complete waste of an item. But if you're playing with certain characters, this is very good. I mean, heal 25 basically says heal up to full health. It's probably like solid B or C. C or B. You think C? Everyone's saying C. All right, you've got me on this one, chat. I'll go with the crowd. We'll go C. Lucky Eye, during your turn, strengthen yourself and all adjacent allies. I think this is probably, I mean, strengthen is very strong. However, I would probably try and use the 60 gold that I might spend on this on actually enhancing strengthen instead, right? What are these potions called, chat? Cures. There's no cure for this card, unfortunately. F. Don't be fooled by this. This makes it sound great. You're like, oh, I ever get stunned. This is a new player trap, in my opinion. You can play through most negative conditions in the game. If you get poisoned or wounded, just use a heal potion. You'll get rid of it. It's fine. If you get muddled, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Maybe you might end up not doing a great attack, but is it worth a slot? This is kind of like one of those like hindsight type items, right? Where you're kind of like, oh yeah, if I had that, that would have been great. And you could probably point to like, yeah, but also you wouldn't have had that heal potion to keep yourself alive because you've used your slot up, or you wouldn't have the stamina potion to be able to get back that trample to be able to play it. All of these things, right? I would say, okay, I'll probably put this in F, and I would maybe put this one in D. Removing all negative. When often do you have more than one negative condition? I suppose it's not very often. And to be honest, there's probably only one negative condition that you'd ever need to remove. I think they both should live together. So I guess if one is going to go into D, then I guess both of them have to go into D. But I really don't like them. I really don't. Mana potions. Hooray! So mana potions are solid in a similar way that like sort of ones and stuff. They're not quite as good. They're probably C. It's creating 2 worth of burn. I guess it probably is. It can be used to set up Helix Ring. Helix Ring, quick! It's going to go up into A tier. Orb of Dawn, Orb of Twilight. I mean, they don't help with the Helix Ring, right? I think these are both very situational, so they're probably both D. You reckon they're F tier? Orb of Meh? Yeah, I mean, the thing is that you can use them occasionally. Whoever wants to use that. It's a good point. It's basically only good against 2 types of enemy, right? So, yeah, okay. All right. F. This is like one of those kind of small items that you don't really mind having. And poison's pretty good. So, like, I'm probably around C for this. It's not great. But being able to maybe poison 3-4 enemies before you do an AoE attack is pretty good. Like, for 40 gold, for what it does, you're never hugely sad to have it. The problem is that many small items below B just never get used. Yeah, I mean, that is very true. Resonant Crystal, F. F, 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 F. You never want to use, like, you'll never use this item. If you're playing digital, you actually start with this item. So sell it immediately, get your 10 gold, and be damn happy about it. Let's do these 3 summon items, shall we? That was easy. Would they be usable if they were 10 gold? Yes, because they would basically tank an attack. And I think if they were to tank an attack, that's worth some gold, right? You think D for summons? I'm very close to F because I just really don't like. I mean, I only like a few characters with these. Skeleton D, rest F. I don't know. Vulcan is. Let's just put them all in D then. Situationally, they can be used. They take up an important slot. I know we said we're not trying to do that too much, but it's hard not to think about that. Healing Scroll, heal 3, range 5. I quite like this. This is better than the minor health potion for sure. So you should definitely be taking it over the minor. So I think it's probably, I'm probably around B or A for this. Yeah, probably A. You have the flexibility of using it on yourself or somebody else. I think it's a great item for a support character. It's probably the best heal, really. I mean, I know that heal 7 is obviously much better, but it's the fact that it's just so versatile to remove something like poison or wound off somebody who really needs it. During an ally's attack, add +1 attack to their entire attack action. So similarly to, I think, these. Does this get into S tier? Maybe because it could be like completely broken, right? But I don't think it's maybe quite good enough to get into S tier. So next up we have, during our turn ally with range 5 may recover up to 2 star cards. I mean, there are certain characters that when they loop more and more cards, it becomes more and more easy. You can't choose yourself. So inherently, it's kind of, it's not quite as good, right, as this. But in terms of like just allowing a character to do something very broken over and over and over again, this is just really good. Let's do jewelry last, because jewelry is pretty pretty OP. So stun powder. Stun powder is similar to doom powder. I find it's kind of like quite fair. I think for the cost on what it does, I think it's fine. Skull of Hatred. During your turn, curse all adjacent enemies. So this is not as good as the poison, I don't think. It costs a bit more, but cursing a lot of things can be quite good. Cursing is something that is very powerful in the game. It doesn't matter who you're cursing though, you can throw it on a brute. And if you can give 3 curses, that's good value. Yeah, I think like 3, anything above 3 you're pretty happy with, right? Maybe high D. I don't know. It's tricky. It's tricky. I'm going to leave it in C for now. Shield ring, 20 gold, gain shield 4 for the attack. I don't think you want to take up a slot with this kind of effect. Just below a minor potion, you think? Well, minor potions are B, but that's because they can clear stuff. I think it's not as good as a C. I like shields when you have small amounts of it that is repeatable, but I don't like one-shots. Rings. So Ring of Brutality. Yeah. We're going S tier. I mean, again, this fundamentally breaks one of the rules, right? Because this is essentially allowing you to play an additional card in your turn. And if you plan accordingly, you can do some bonkers combos with this type of stuff. And you've got the Ring of Haste, which allows you to play the bottom. Uh-oh. Up in there. We lost it. This is definitely better than this, which is why I think why it's reflected within the cost. But again, certain characters have better bottoms than they do tops, or some of their bottoms are insane. Passives as well, because sometimes the passives are on bottoms, right? That would allow you to maybe like burn a passive and still maybe do a move if you wanted to. I think Ring of Brutality is probably slightly better, hence the cost, because this is probably this probably allows you to do more things with just damage. But certainly do not let this put you off. This 10 gold. This is still extremely strong. Second chance ring. Another ring. At the end of your turn, play 2 cards from your hand and perform an additional turn this round based on your new leading initiative, which must be later than your current initiative. That sounds like a bit of a drawback. It's really not. If you're a character who has lots of early initiatives, who cares? You can just immediately take 2 turns. It's the combination of these 2 together. And that's why the cost is. And it only takes up 1 slot, whereas this takes up 2. You think the rings are the only things that give OG stamina potions a run for their top tier rank. That's true. These are like substantially better than some of these other. That's why I think we will readjust a few of these, I think. I'm definitely feeling that Horned Helm now maybe should come down. I think Horned Helm and probably Iron Helm should probably come down to A. On to the earrings. So Moon Earring, during your turn, refresh all of your spent items. Very, very good for tanking players. I don't think this is cool. This is close to S tier. This really is very close to S tier. And for 20 gold, it does a lot. However, it's not great for every character. Not every character will make use of Moon Earring because you might not have the type of boots that you need. You might not have, a weapon that you can refresh. So this isn't going to be great for everyone. Sometimes this literally just refreshes a pair of boots. So I think it's probably A. So Sun, during your turn, refresh all of your spell items and perform a heal 3. This probably is enough to put it into S. I think adding the heal 3 is really good. This probably puts it in. And so finally, Star Earring. This is, in my opinion, the best item in the game. Refreshing all of your spent items, perform a heal 3, and get 2 cards back. Again, like the reason why this potentially becomes S tier just because of the existence of all of these items in S tier. 8 small items in S tier. Over half of the items in S tier are small items, which is why like some of these other ones really suffer. I do think that this probably now drops down. I think that this probably now drops down into A tier. I do love it. I think it's great. But honestly, I don't think that that can occupy the same place as any of this. Similar to this as well. I really don't think it can. I think they're very good. They're probably verging on it. I just don't think you can really occupy the same space, right? And there we have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider tossing it a like and subscribing. And of course, if you want to get in on this kind of thing live, then don't forget to head over to twitch.tv/mandatoryquest, where I stream live every Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. It was just a bit of fun today. Hopefully catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.
I think still, yeah. Interested.
Oh,
Scout
oh,
wins.
that's the blessing from Scout.
Yeah.
That's the blessing
So,
from.
Isaac, at this point, can we get your approval to add an additional attack modifier deck for allies in the digital version?